Welcome back to Outdoors with Larry Ray on ESPN 790 AM, brought to you proudly by the Tennessee Wildlife and Resources Agency.
Hey, good Saturday morning. Welcome back to Outdoors with Larry Ray. Hello, all you good folks out in Memphis on ESPN 790 AM and 92.9 HD-FM. And, of course, in Jackson, Tennessee on News Talk 101.5. And the station that we'll kind of talk about here, because I'm sure this station knows more people that know the late Joe Sills than anybody, and that's our good friends on 1520 AM and 95.3 in Brownsville, Tennessee. And as we got Dave Gabbard and Gene Smith on this first Saturday as our regular co-host, we've gone from...
I started to take Saturday off because I seen my shadow.
Well, you have a bigger shadow than I do, so... But anyway, that's Dave, and Gene will be doing some puns probably later on. But I really wanted to get my friend, the late Joe Sills, that he and I knew each other for many years, whether it's at the sports shows that he was always at, or whether it was my 3 years with the Mid-South Hunting and Fishing News as their editor, and the relationship that I had with Joe. And so we're really happy to have on this morning with us Joe's son, Joe Sills. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, guys. Larry, Dave, Gene, thank you for having me on, and thanks for the opportunity to come and talk about Dad. Larry, I know when you guys worked together at the Hunting and Fishing News, he was just the biggest fan of yours, and he absolutely loved working with you there.
Well, as I told you, golly, it's hard for me to even talk about it, Joe, because when I got that phone call from your dad that morning, and he told me he was on the gurney heading to ICU, but he asked me would I be kind enough to fix his story for the next Mid-South legend, Billy Lindsay, and because he told me, he said, I may not be back, and bless his heart, I was so honored that he called me. Folks, that's a man of integrity that wanted to get that thing right, even though he was in the shape he was in, and that just fits your dad, Joe. And I know he's been featured by my good friend Jeff Calkins. I've seen all of them. I've seen the picture, and everything like that. Mm-hmm. The outpouring of love for your dad. I know you probably expected this, but it's been really impressive, hasn't it?
For us, it's been really healing.
Yes.
And I actually didn't know the gurney story until a few days ago, and it hit me pretty hard because Dad was still at the Hunting and Fishing News, obviously, when he passed.
Yes.
And I work for the same publishing company, so in another magazine. Yeah. But the thought to me was like, wow. First of all, that's dedication to a job, and you have to respect that. Second, I felt terrible because I thought, my God, he was working literally until he couldn't work anymore. And it made me reevaluate everything to do with work and his position in my life.
Well,
he loved it. He loved it so much.
Yeah, he loved it, and I was just honored that he called me. And it was hard to communicate with him, but at the same time, he wanted to make sure that and if you grab a copy of the latest issue of Mid-South Hunting and Fishing News, it's Joe's stories in there about Billy Lindsay as the Mid-South legend, and it was Joe and myself, through Carlton Veers, of course, that came up with the idea to do that every issue, to make someone, and to think that one of his final wishes was to make sure that story was right, and I think that sets the tone for your dad and my relation with him. And being a former trumpet player myself in college, of course, I never could triple tongue, so I quit. But your dad could triple tongue and do all those good things with the trumpet.
Well, now, hold on. I didn't know this about you. Where were you in college playing trumpet?
At the University of Arkansas. Yes.
Okay, so you're just across the river and up the hill.
Yes,
a little bit.
I was in the band over there and marched in a couple of bowl games. In fact, they retired. Well, I was really, really honored. They retired my band uniform after I left. They bought new ones. And so that's I'll tell everybody if they retire my uniform, they just bought new ones. But talk about you guys coming up with the idea for the scholarship, Joe. Tell our listeners about that.
Okay. Yeah, so for people that know Dad just from the fishing world, I guess it's important to say that the fishing aspect of Dad's life was something he picked up as a kid.
Yes.
And he carried it his whole life, but he only made it a job the last 20 years or so of his life. And prior to that, he was a marching band director and a trumpet player.
Yes.
And had this really remarkable tale of being a kid growing up in Brownsville, that literally in a house that was so poor they didn't have a bathtub.
I've heard him tell these stories about his dad was a bricklayer or something like that, or yeah.
His dad was a bricklayer and a pretty good one, I'm told, but for whatever reason, I guess it still wasn't really the way to elevate themselves, and he had a wife and 2 little boys.
Yeah.
So when Dad was really little, they had like a wooden tub, which I imagine to be sort of like half of a whiskey barrel or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what they were bathing in, but they were so poor they couldn't afford a whole one of those, so they only had a half of one.
Yeah.
I mean, and so he gets out of that situation by playing trumpet. He had a natural musical ability, and when he was in high school, his dad got him a pawn shop trumpet from somewhere. It's all dinged up and old, and you can see in pictures, but it was enough to get him a scholarship at Memphis State at the time.
Yeah.
And that really elevated him out of poverty, and it brought him into band directing, where he would go on to win a national championship as a director. He won the Memphis marching band competition. It's called the Bandmasters Championship. Mm-hmm. He won that 9 times.
9 times.
So he just really killed it, elevated his whole life. And the family was thinking about ways to honor him and to help other people after he passed.
Yes.
So we had the idea to start a scholarship fund, which you can see at joesillsfund.com.
Yes.
The idea is to buy people an instrument. Every year I want to be able to get kids that are playing some beat-up rented instrument and get them a really top-of-the-line piece of equipment that can change their whole life, that they can keep for the rest of their lives.
It's and let me interrupt, because as I'm listening to this, my show director, Shelby, get on there now. Come on, tell him. My show director, Shelby, plays the trumpet like no one I've ever heard play the trumpet.
Oh, you're too kind, Larry.
I am, but you've been in the band, right? Yeah.
Right.
University of Memphis band. You've played the trumpet in the band, and
wow.
And this is just ironic. I didn't even think about this. And one of our co-hosts, Gene Smith. Gene, what was your job for the school board?
I repaired musical instruments for 47 years at Memphis City Schools and 2 years at Coley Stokes Music Company.
How about that, Joe? I mean,
this is wild. Is this a setup? Did you guys?
No, I didn't even think about it. I'm looking at Shelby.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, and Shelby does play sometimes on this show. I should have had her bring the trumpet. Who knows, but now you're learning about Joe Sills, Shelby, and see what he meant to the mighty sound of the South. And again, we're talking to the late Joe Sills' son, Joe Sills. And so the scholarship idea, so how do people get involved in that? I want to make sure that my listeners, so many are out there this morning that knew your dad from fishing, because he would drop off those Mid-South Hunting Fishing News, and he'd do his routine, and he'd sell ads. He was just an amazing ability, and all of a sudden, this man knew more about fishing than anybody ever knew. I don't think there's a ditch he hadn't fished in, when it comes down to it. But
quick thing, and then I have a funny story on that. You can go to joesillsfund.com, and that'll link you to our GoFundMe.
Okay, all right.
According to the University of Memphis, we need to raise about $35,000 to endow a scholarship.
Okay.
We're doing great so far. We've got about $5,000, and that's
okay.
way more than I ever dreamed. So it's going well. and it's a long-term goal, so I think we're going to get there. But when you talk about Dad and fishing ditches, there was a time where he and I were on the Hatchie River in Brownsville.
Yeah.
We were been on the river all morning, had a good time, and we were pulling out, and he noticed a strange ripple in the water by the ramp. I mean, something that I would have never noticed, and
Yeah.
probably 99% of people would never notice. And
Yes.
It's just a ripple under the surface. Well, I guess it must have bothered him so much that he had to think about it, and he went back and found a car antenna
Come on.
below the surface of the water.
Come on.
I'm serious. I'm totally. It's right by the ramp.
Yes.
So the police come in and send in divers, and they uncovered a stolen car that had been gone for weeks or months or whatever.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, literally just because there was a weird ripple in the water that he knew. It's just wild to me.
Doesn't surprise me. And I know, Joe, your dad was really proud of you. And, folks, Joe was he's had regular features in Forbes, the Bassmaster Magazine, the Travel Channel. I guess is your podcast still going? The Get Lost podcast, is that still going?
Yeah, it's going. I took a recording break at the end of December, and I just this week set up a new episode where we're going to go on an archaeological dig in Oman with a Canadian archaeologist. And Get Lost podcast. You can look it up wherever you get podcasts, and there's a little raven as the logo.
It's amazing.
Go to getlostpod.com. But we actually took home a Podcast of the Year award last year, so
you did.
I'm excited about that.
Well, I know, and we got to get out of here, but I know back in 2016, I can't tell you how many times your dad told me about the 16,000-mile solo road trip across the U.S. that you took. Your dad was really proud of you, and I know you must have had some interesting conversation with your dad.
Yeah, and honestly, that trip was all stuff he taught me in Boy Scouts. That's how I did it.
Doesn't surprise me. Joe Sills, thank you. Wish we had more time, buddy, but all this will be posted on lroutdoors.com. All the segments should be up by this afternoon. Shelby will take care of that. Buddy, we'll talk to you again, and again, thanks, and tell your mom and all the Sills family that prayers continue for you guys, okay?
Will do. Hey, thank you so much, everybody. Outdoors meant everything to Dad, and it's an honor to come on and tell you a little bit about him. So enjoy your weekend.
All right, thank you, Joe. All right, let's take a break, and we'll come right back on Outdoors America.